how to draw an orange tabby cat. The reference image is linked in the description below. I always like to start with the eyes, so I do a very quick outline, try to get the shape as best as possible, but that might end up changing as you start to go along. Now with cat eyes, you can definitely see that the pupils are more like slits, so pay attention to that and especially the angle that they're in. The color in this cat eye was actually pretty similar to the color of the fur, so I used a little bit of orange. There was a tiny bit of green and then a little bit of blue in there, so I had to blend all of that together. And don't forget to make room for the highlights. Of course, it's very, very important to getting that glossy look. And because it's so small too, you definitely want to focus on the details. It really matters. So using the slice tool to etch in some of those little lines and blending it all together is really important. So the next step is usually I draw left to right just because I want to prevent smudging as much as possible. So I'm starting with the ear, kind of going to the top of the eye there, and since it's so small I can do it pretty quickly, but it really is all about getting those colors. So I ended up using a lot of different colors. So you can see I used a little bit of this gold yellow color, and then I used a little bit of some brown, some burnt sienna colors. Just a variety of colors is really, really important. Now this cat definitely had different colors depending on the lighting, so it was pretty difficult to kind of apply the correct coloring. So that's why I always ask for more than just one image. That way I can actually get a more accurate reading on the color. And then once you continue, for tabby cats specifically, the ones that have those patterns, I try to create those patterns kind of in advance. That way I know where they're at, and then proportionally I'll be able to actually work with it a little bit better. So I'm still blending a lot of the different colors, and I'm still using the light blue, especially for the highlighted areas. It really helps to have that contrast between the warm tones and the cold tones to create more of a sense of depth. And look above the eyes too. You can see that there's a little bit of a different color going on there. I really want to emphasize where the eyebrow starts and then where the eye starts. So usually there is a little bit of a lighter color between the eyebrow and the eye itself. And then continuing on to the nose. There's not much to the nose, it's very small anyway, but I still want to add a little bit more detail. So it really is just more of getting that T shape, or almost like a Y shape really. And I'm not adding a lot of detail just yet. I do kind of save the details until last. But going back to the tabby cat pattern, if you are struggling with getting the pattern down right, maybe do a quick trace of where the pattern actually is on the pet. That way when you do start to apply it, it's going to be a whole lot easier to actually draw where it's located. I had used to do that, but now I'm actually gotten a little bit better, so I can kind of draw more freehand. If you're wondering how I got those whiskers right there, I actually used that same slice tool, which that material is actually linked in the ebook, the materials ebook, which will be in the description below. But it's a slice tool, and what I did was just etch those long lines into the paper, and it creates this groove so that when you're drawing on top, it avoids that area. It doesn't always, but you can kind of play around with it and see what works and what doesn't work. Now, when it comes to lighting, you can actually see that the left-hand side has much darker lighting than the right-hand side. So pay attention to that too. Look and see before you actually start. Look and see where the light is coming in from, and try to accommodate based off of that. It doesn't always work because sometimes the lighting is just direct, so it's not always going to be that easy, but it really does help, once again, to create a more realistic look when you do have more of a direct lighting from one angle. The face usually takes the longest, and then the rest of the body doesn't take nearly as long. I think it's more just because there's not nearly as much detail that you have to work on, and for the body, I don't have to directly look at the reference image all the time. I'm just trying to draw in the same direction as the fur that you see. That's super, super important. And as you're building up those layers, make sure that you are working on that pattern no matter what. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but just something that so that you can have a good reference. And then this paintbrush I'm actually using, it is Gamsol Mineral Spirits Oil. It's actually the odorless kind. And what it does is it blends all of that waxy coating so that you can actually go back over it and not have to deal with the tooth of the paper nearly as much. And it kind of makes the colors a little bit more saturated looking. So you don't have to damage the paper by applying so many layers to achieve that look. And here I go again with the light blue. Very, very important to apply that in the highlighted areas. And then I do apply a little bit of some light pinks in there. There's definitely quite a bit of that color along with the orange, the reds, the browns. This is just a plethora of colors in this cat here. But now you can see that this slice tool here, I'm just etching away some of the details. You don't always have to use the slice tool. It really just depends on the style and the look that you want to achieve. So I like to use it just very sparingly. I used to use it a little bit too much, but now I've kind of focused on more just using it to create some stray hairs and then fix up the whiskers, things like that. And then the same method is applied to the rest of the body. So we've got that neck done, and I like to work in chunks. That way I kind of know proportionally where things are at, as well as feeling a sense of accomplishment too, because if you're just working from one section to the next and not finishing it, it does get to be a little bit more overwhelming, and you're like, oh, I have to go back and do this. So it's very easy just to work on that section, finish it up, move on to the next section. But now you can actually see I just did a green color. It's more like a sagey green. It's a raw umber in the Caran d'Ache Luminance series, and it really is quite a beautiful color, especially when you apply it, because it kind of brings out more of those natural tones, the natural reflections from the environment into the pet fur itself. So you can also play around with different colors. You can use purples, pinks, blues, greens, all sorts of different colors. I know I didn't start out that way, but if you just play around with it, it really makes a huge difference, and I learned that over time. So if you start out doing that to begin with, then you can get really, really advanced. So I'm using a light, it's actually a white color, and what this does is it kind of creates a sense of highlights, like a little bit of a shininess in the fur. So use that sparingly too, but you can tell that it actually does make a huge difference in this fur. Now I am drawing a little bit darker than I actually anticipated, at least in the back side here of this pet. So in the end, I actually lightened it up a little bit. So just be cautious of that too, is you cannot really erase ultimately, but you can lighten it up by using lighter colored pencils. So just be mindful of that. I would highly suggest maybe working with lighter pressure and lighter pencils to begin with until you're more comfortable with, how the pencils are actually applied, what they look like before you apply them, and if you're heavy-handed or light-handed. For me, I'm more light-handed, so I have to kind of apply heavier pressure, but luckily that mineral spirits really helps me out to create a little bit more saturation, so I don't have to apply as much heavy pressure. Well, we're actually almost done here, so I really hope that this video was helpful. Please give it a like and subscribe. And if you are interested in knowing what materials I use, you can check out the link below where I have a whole materials list ebook as well as a budget-friendly one. And then if you are actually wanting to learn to draw, you can check out my program. I have a membership and a program. The program is Learn to Draw Your Own Pet. It's 8 weeks long, very in-depth. And then the membership is just you go and click on different videos that you want to watch of different animals and just follow along. They're way more in-depth than these kind of videos. And you also know exactly what pencils I'm using as well. and the exact steps and methods that I use. So go check those out in the link below. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.